Every time there's a new Minecraft update, some things become impossible to do. For the last 14 years, I've been finding the coolest items, blocks, and mobs that you can only get during certain versions of Minecraft. With the full release of 1.20 coming on June 7th, you will want to collect these 10 rares before it becomes impossible. Not only are they cool to show off, you can sell them to other players for a high price because no one else will have them. First up, let's take a look at several new things that you should collect in 1.19.4, which are impossible to get in 1.20. So to make a rare discontinued mob, what you'll want to do is you'll want to have a mob that can pick up armor, first pick up some type of armor, then give them a separate armor piece, which they will then put into their main hand and drop their weapon. So the part that's rare about this is a mob that would be holding a weapon, drops it, and holds armor instead. This can be applied to a lot of different types of mob, which normally have a weapon in their hand, like a stray holding a bow, skeleton, a bow, a zombie holding a sword. Although zombies can also not have swords, in which case this trick is actually not a rare for them. Skeletons switching out their stone swords, zombified piglins dropping their swords. For Husk, it also isn't a rare, neither is it for a drowned or a zombie, but it is for piglins, which normally would have a crossbow or a sword. This can be combined with the different types of jockeys in the game in order to get a wide variety of rare mobs. So now you can see in 1.20 this has been fixed. The skeleton doesn't drop the bow and it doesn't hold the armor piece. There is a rare item that you need to get before updating to 1.20. This is having a jack-o'-lantern that is enchanted. In 1.19.4, it's possible to put a jack-o'-lantern inside of an anvil and combine it with a curse book to get an enchanted jack-o'-lantern. This also works with the curse of binding or both enchantments on a single book, so you can get both of them, making 3 new rare items. Because once you update to 1.20, it no longer lets you put enchantments onto jack-o'-lanterns. So make sure you get a bunch of these items before they're no longer possible. But there is more collectible rares you can get in this version related to jack-o'-lanterns. Because in 1.19.4, it's possible to actually place jack-o'-lanterns onto armor stands. And this wasn't possible in prior version and is not going to be possible in 1.20. You can also place them onto the player head just by shift clicking them and it'll place it right into the helmet slot. So if you're willing to keep this on your head forever, you yourself become a new rare. But this trick actually applies to other mobs as well. Any mob that has the ability to pick up loot could actually pick up one of these jack-o'-lanterns and wear it. So if we give it to the zombie here, we put that on him, he doesn't hold it in his hand, but instead puts it on his head, which makes a super rare mob, as normally the only way you can get jack-o'-lanterns on undead mobs' heads is during the one day of Halloween, which is only a 2.5% chance of any undead mob, so you can get these unique mobs without it even being Halloween. But this doesn't actually decrease the rarity if you do happen to get one of these Halloween jack-o'-lantern mobs. That's because to pull off this trick here, the mob does have to be able to pick up loot. Where if you get a jack-o'-lantern headed mob during Halloween, you can make sure to get one that doesn't have pick up loot. Therefore, the only way it could have got a jack-o'-lantern head is by naturally spawning it. But we can combine this with the previous trick of having an enchanted jack-o'-lantern that is also placed onto the mob. So if we just throw them that, they still think it's a jack-o'-lantern and they'll wear it, but now it's also enchanted. This is definitely rare that you cannot get during Halloween. So if you have time, be sure to collect one of each of the undead mobs and give them a enchanted jack-o'-lantern to wear on their head. This can also be done to the baby variations as well as jockeys. And if you want to become a rare yourself, you can put on the enchanted version of the jack-o'-lantern. That is until you die, as you'll no longer have it on your head. Where in 1.20 you can't place in armor stands, and giving it to a mob, they won't put it on their head. Because this has to be done by either the player placing it like on an armor stand or giving it to a mob who places it on their head, it doesn't actually work with dispensers. So if we just power this, it actually just drops the item, where if it was a carved pumpkin, it gets placed on. For this reason, you can't use the really cool trick I showed, where you can place armor onto villagers just by using a dispenser. I'll have that link down below, but you can see that the item just goes flying out, but it still works with carved pumpkins. So you might think we cannot get these jack-o'-lanterns onto villagers. But then I remembered a cool trick that Shuttery showed me, where if we give a villager zombie some armor, which is enchanted with curse of binding, when the zombie gets converted over into a villager, it doesn't actually drop the armor like it normally would, but instead is kept on the villager, but not in its normal like hand location or its armor location, but instead in the villager's inventory. So I had the idea to use this to make a super duper rare. By combining this with the jack-o'-lanterns that had curse of binding, we just forced this villager to take the jack-o'-lantern which it was wearing as well as holding and move them from their armor slots into their inventory. It's normally impossible to get villagers to hold anything inside this area except for their farming supplies. So looking at the data of this villager, we can see that inside of its inventory it's holding a jack-o'-lantern, which it has 63 of them, and these jack-o'-lanterns have enchantment, which is a curse of binding. You can also see in the next inventory slot the villager has another jack-o'-lantern, which there's only one of, and also has a curse of binding, and this was the one that was part of its head. But if you unload the chunks with the villager who has 2 inventory slots of the same thing, such as like our jack-o'-lanterns, it actually will combine them, so now we have just 1 stack of 64. So having a villager holding these 2 items in their inventory is considered a rare, even though you can't see the villager actually wearing them or holding them in their hand. And if you want to go all out with this type of rare, you can go ahead and try to get these incredibly rare type of villager zombies, which I explained in this video here. Then you give the villager zombie those enchanted jack-o'-lanterns and convert it into a villager. It will be riding a chicken as a baby villager. And then when this baby villager grows up, you'll now have this crazy adult villager riding a chicken. And if you gave it those curse of binding jack-o'-lanterns, it has those in its inventory, making it super duper rare. I'll put the full video on how rare these mobs are. They're actually so rare that if you had a zombie for every atom that there is in the universe, you would still not get one of these. For those of you that want to avoid killing the first dragon, this trick is for you. When going into the ender dimension for the very first time, and once you get to the end dimension, you have to immediately place down the ender crystal on this obsidian platform. It helps to have lower render distance, but what this does is it causes the dragon to never spawn in, and the game thinks that you already killed the ender dragon, so it goes ahead and lights the exit end portal, meaning that you officially beat the game without killing the ender dragon. This was mostly used in the glitch category of speedrunning, and by using this, in theory it's possible to beat Minecraft in less than 1 minute. The downside to using this is that you didn't actually kill the ender dragon, therefore you don't get any gateway portals to easily leave the main end island. So for that you would have to actually resummon the ender dragon and kill it. This trick was removed in 1.20, so if you do it, the ender dragon will still spawn, and the exit gateway portal will be unlit. Next up is another one you cannot do in 1.20 full release, but you can do in 1.19.4, but it's kind of a funny one. It has to do with players interacting with other people's dogs. These aren't my tame wolves here. When I right click them, you see they don't stand up or anything. But in this version, it's the last version that's possible to actually re-dye these dogs' collars, despite them not being your dogs. So you could come in and confuse your friends by switching out their dog's colors of collar. As this was seen as griefing, it was removed. So now in 1.20, you cannot dye the dogs that aren't yours. With 1.20, they also come in and re-overhauled the lighting updates. This fixed a bunch of different bugs on how light would actually update into other blocks. As a consequence of it, being able to consistently remove light from areas, which is known as light update suppression, has also been removed from the game. This was used in combination of my underload nether portal farms to make the nether portals produce no lights, where mobs that need darkness could spawn inside of them. And these have been known about in the game since the 1.14 snapshots, so if you want to take advantage of bright areas being dark, make sure to do it before updating to 1.20. This next rare is possible for anyone who played in 1.19.4 with experimental snapshots turned on. This is because you got access to the new hanging signs. Normally, any type of wood underneath of a noteblock will always produce the base instrument. But Slim Jim showed me this really cool one where if you have it connected to a block to the side of it, it'll end up being a wrong type of noise from the noteblock. And once you update to 1.20, the noteblock will still make a snare noise. But any new notblocks you place on top of these will play the correct noise. There's also 3 snapshot only rares that you can get. First one being this pitcher plant here, which is actually floating, where the bottom part of the pitcher plant actually hangs down a little bit. And you can do some really cool stuff with this, like make a wither cage, which I showed in this video here. You can also get a mismatched pitcher plant, where the top piece is fully grown, but the bottom piece isn't fully grown, and has this little Z fighting going on. In 1.20, when you grow a torchflower, when it gets to the biggest stage, it will no longer be in the center like it is most of the time it's growing. Instead, it'll get offset to one side. This is based off the same randomness you see as other flowers. But during the snapshots, it's possible to actually grow these and have them stay in the center, where if you would place it, it'd be off to the side. And in this particular snapshot, you're able to duplicate any type of book. This is just by having a chiseled bookshelf, filling it up, and then every time you right click on it, it's going to add a new book into your inventory. You can use this on normal books, also on written books, which just causes them to get duplicated. This can also be done with book and quills. By using this, you can make your stacks as big as you want, even going past the 64 limit. And the best one, of course, is your enchanted book. Any type of enchanted book, you can get as many as you want just by right clicking. And you can also get overstacked to make crazy huge amounts of them. But if you log off, when you log back in, if your stack is over the amount that the game can save, it will just delete the entire stack. And the save limit is 127 items per stack. So if you have 128, it'll just vanish. There's some really cool stuff you can do with these overstacked items, which I talk more about in this video here. There's also a bonus snapshot only rare you can get, which is this floating pitcher plant top piece. The way you can make this is by coming in, placing a torch, having a dark room where you then have farmland and plant in the pod, then remove the torch and then go ahead and bone meal the bottom of this pitcher plant. When it gets to the top piece, it's going to update the bottom one and actually break off. It will give you the actual plant, but then this thing is just floating there. And even if you unload the chunks, it's not like a ghost block. It actually is there and is floating. But in order to do this, you do have to do it in the snapshot before release candidate 1 of 1.20. Otherwise, the way you could do these type of floating plants is by using update suppression, but it's a bit harder than this method. The next category are things you can still do in 1.20 but become harder, so you should take advantage of this before updating. The first big thing that you should definitely take advantage of has to do with how you can upgrade your diamond armor to netherite in past versions versus future versions. So before, you can easily come in here with a diamond helmet and a netherite ingot to get your netherite helmet. But in 1.20, if you thought getting netherite was difficult, you first actually have to get a smithing template netherite upgrade. Then only with this can you actually put in your ingots as well as diamond piece in order to upgrade it to a netherite version. This will also consume the template. Getting these netherite upgrade smithing templates is no easy task. They can only be found in Bastion remnants in the nether dimension. And out of the 4 different Bastion remnants, the treasure Bastion, which is the one that has the loot all piled up in the center of the lava, is the only one that has a 100% chance of getting one of these templates in each of these chests that are in the center. Where all the other chests outside of this area, as well as chests that come from Hoglin stables, bridge chests, as well as generic chests, only have a 10% chance of getting one of these templates per chest. Now luckily, once you do get one of these templates, you can actually craft them for a copy. This is done by having at least one template plus the unique block type that they need. For the netherite ones, it needs a nether rack, which is a non-renewable resource. But the templates also need a total of 7 diamonds, which are also non-renewable resources. So after working hard to collect these materials, you can then turn that into 2 of these. So make sure to do all your diamond gear upgrading while it's still easy and cheap to do. And if you're afraid you're going to fall in the void and lose your gear, go ahead and make extra sets. Another thing that becomes harder in 1.20 is getting some advancements. With the 2x2 advancement, you have to breed 2 of each breedable mob. And with the introductions of camels as well as sniffers, that means you would have to also breed up sniffers as well as camels in order to get this advancement. So if you get it before 1.20, you can avoid these 2 sets of mobs. This same thinking applies to the adventuring time advancement, where you would have to go out and discover every single biome in the game. So if you get this advancement before updating, you can avoid trying to find a cherry blossom biome, which are found in a similar location of meadows. Because once you complete these advancements, they will continue to be completed in future versions, even if there's new requirements. Next up, let's take a look at things that could break your farm's machines when upgrading to 1.20. So before, when it came to right-clicking on signs, your character would just do this, or they'd constantly be right-clicking but not actually interacting with the sign. Even if you're holding a block, you can't actually place it up against it. But in 1.20, this changes with the new editing. So if you right-click a sign, you can actually go inside of it where it says edit sign message. You can actually change what it says. And then by hitting done, it will actually add it. So if you do want to place like a block on top of a sign, you have to shift click it like you did before. Now this editing of signs will apply to old signs in your world as well. So there's nothing you can do to stop people from editing your old signs, unless you come in with some honeycomb. Then if you right click this onto the sign, you get the little particles. Now it's no longer possible anybody to edit it. And you can't use like an axe to take the wax off. And even blank signs can be edited. So make sure to collect plenty of honeycomb before updating so you're ready to wax your signs to prevent people from editing them. You can get tons of honeycomb before updating by using this farm here, which I'll link below. This will also affect areas where you purposely right click on signs to not get your player to actually place any blocks, such as like here in my AFK fish farm, which still works. On the back side here is a sign. When you update your world, when you try to right click the sign, it's just going to go into the editing sign message. And you don't actually want this because the way the farm works is you would sit here and right click on the sign. So you'll have to remember to come in and use some wax on it, and then this will make it work just like it was before. So now you can see I can right click on the sign. And with this simple fix, the AFK fish farm will continue to work. This is currently the best AFK fish farm, providing all the different types of treasure enchantments, and I'll have it linked down below. The second thing that could break in your worlds has to do with anything related to sculk sensors. As before, they used to have tons of different events that could be read by the sculk sensor and activate different amounts of redstone signals. It wasn't very intuitive though. Where 1.20 sculk sensors got a rework for the different types of vibrations that they listen to and how they're actually being categorized. Now there is still a total of 15 different categories that will produce different redstone signals when a sculk sensor is read with a comparator. And all the previous events are just rearranged to fit into these 15 categories that make a lot more sense than before. But because they got rearranged, if you are using a sculk sensor to listen for a very specific type of event, it most likely now produces a different type of redstone signal. So you want to go back and check your sculk sensors and reprogram them accordingly. I do have this video here that goes into great detail about this change and how we can use this change as well as the new calibrated sculk sensor to our advantage. Now if you are using sculk sensor just to pick up any type of vibration, like I am inside my AFK fish farm, then you don't have to worry about this change as it will still pick up all vibrations. Some parkour maps will also be broken in 1.20 because now, even if you're on the edge of a block, it will still affect the player. Now let's take a look at things you can do right now in your world before even updating to 1.20 so you have more fun once you update. First thing we're going to look at is actually bamboo. This is because not only can you make all these new different types of blocks out of bamboo, but it can be crafted into planks. And because wood is used to craft the majority of other types of things in the game, by having a bamboo farm, you can have infinite amounts of planks. I have these simple yet highly productive bamboo farms, which you can build right now and start collecting tons of it so you're ready for 1.20 and all the cool uses you can get out of it. But you can also be ready for 1.20 by building some 1.20 farms, such as like my sniffer farm, which produces torchflower seeds and pitcher pods. Once you have it built up, all you have to wait for is 1.20 to actually put in the sniffers. Same thing applies for this automatic machine here, which I made to have villagers plant these seeds and to convert the seeds into the actual plants, as the farm itself can be built up and the seeds placed in later. This can also be done for my camel breeding setup if you want to get tons of camels once you get to 1.20. There's also my automatic book sorter in case you don't want to use a lathe. And my entire automatic cherry tree farm can be built up and then just come in with a sapling in the last moment. Same thing for my AFK cherry leaf farm, so you can get tons and tons of these leaves all while being AFK. And you can build my automatic mob head farm right away since everything is already in 1.19. And once you update it, it will automatically work for the old mob heads as well as the new piglin ones. Now one farm you cannot build up ahead is my automatic pink petal farm, because this is actually built inside of a cherry grove biome where bone milling the ground will actually produce these cool pink petals which produce pink dye. Which brings us to the next point, which is things you should not do before updating. And that is you should not go exploring, because by going exploring, you're going to load chunks which could potentially be the cherry biome in 1.20. And because 1.20 is called the Trails and Tails update, by loading chunks, you're less likely to find this new structure, which is the trail runes. And the majority of these structures are actually hidden underneath the ground for you to dig up and explore. And you'll actually need these structures in order to get all the different new types of pottery shards, as well as templates, which is actually needed if you want to get all the new advancements. And because almost every single structure now has brand new loot within their chest, hold off from opening any chests so you get the new loot when you update. Now see more rare items and blocks in this playlist here. If you enjoyed the tons of hours it takes me to discover all these crazy things, you guys can always support me on my Patreon, or you can do this for free by leaving a like and sharing this video with your favorite Minecraft. And make sure to credit Ray's works. Thank you for watching, I'll see you next one. Bye bye!